Government is to be identified. A lot of people look at the Constitution as something that can be used to govern your day-to-day activities. Really, the Constitution was established to identify the type of government that was being established by the Garveyites of that time. There was not enough time thereafter to further develop the Constitution, and I'll be happy to explain that at a later point. But I just want to emphasize that the elements were in fact met. The UNIA published the Declaration of Rights of the Negro people of the world. If you study these declarations, and there's a lot of them, you will see that this was done to tell the world how we wanted to be identified. Plus, it was also done to hold a plebiscite. So over 20,000 people gathered from all over the world, and in 1920 that was significant, to declare that they wanted to be a part of this government. And this is something that every man, woman on this planet has a God-given and a legal right to pursue. That's all that was done. Again, we emphasize legality here because we want people to understand Garveyism from a legal perspective. There was recognition from other governments, most notably Belize and Costa Rica, just to mention a couple. The research has not been fully developed yet in terms of the nature and extent of how the government was developed, but at least we know that all of the elements to define a government was in fact met.
Okay, good. So now that you've told us about the standards and how they were met, can you tell us how this government functioned during Mr. Garvey's day?
Well, the research that we have done up to this point indicates that the UNIA functioned as a government, a fully functional government, for about an 8-year period. And again, that's my guesstimate. Professor Tony Martin made it very clear that it would take an extensive amount of money and a lot of people to really develop this aspect of our history. That this story has not been fully told, but what we do know is that the UNIA was able to send diplomats all over the world to different government bodies, which they were received. The UNIA had its own passports. These are all government functions. The parent body was put into action, not just figureheads, but it was functioning as the government officials that were regulating how the UNIA was to be looked at globally. I think another point that made our government so unique was the fact that this government had no territorial boundaries. It was a global government. So at that time it represented the first, what I would call, independent black government and a global black government at the same time.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about that concept of not having a land base for the government. Lots of people do recognize that a government is connected with a particular piece of land. Can you tell us why that's not a factor in not having the UNIA known as a government?
Well, I think again, when you look at modern government, the land base is only a part of it. It doesn't have to have that as a main element in order to be recognized as a government. I think in my lifetime, the biggest illustration of that point was the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO. Even today, still gets recognition as a government, but still wrestling over this issue of land. Garvey recognized the importance of having an anchor nation, which would be a land base that would serve as the international arm of the government, and was trying to finalize that. And Liberia, when the government that time conspired to undermine that effort, Garvey then tried to work with his top lieutenant, Sir Isaiah Morta, who had willed over 500 acres of land to the parent body for African redemption, which again is a critical element because the African redemption is tied into our Constitution. The Honorable Marcus Garvey tried to finalize that, but because of the legal problems that he was having as a result of being in this